Hello to all my drama students out there, past, present, and future. Today, I am recording this video for you from Polly's fabulous costume shop and dressing room, and this is a monologue tips, techniques, and advice video. We're going to be talking about the 3 most common mistakes that I see young actors make when they prepare monologues for auditions. Now, this video is specifically being prepared for those students of mine who are planning to audition for my upcoming spring musical production of Matilda. However, the advice that I am going to be giving you in this video is applicable to any monologue for any audition you're ever preparing anywhere. So feel free to use this, share it, give it to friends, whatever. I wish you all the best of luck. Remember, when the actors succeed, the director succeeds. So I want all of you to be amazing, right? So, without further ado, the 3 most common mistakes that young actors make when they're going on auditions with a monologue. Mistake number 1, they rush. They go way too fast. Mistake number 2, they don't give their monologue proper physicalization. Either they pace around randomly or they stand perfectly still like a soldier. And mistake number 3, failure to differentiate. They do the entire monologue the same way. Johnny could only sing one note, and the note he sang was this, ah. Very famous Broadway show tune from the musical Babes in Arms called Johnny One Note. If you don't know the song, I highly recommend that you look it up. It's very funny, very catchy, and having this song in the back of your head will always remind you to differentiate when you are singing and when you are doing a monologue. Okay, now, it would be really easy for me to say the most common mistakes that students make are they rush, they don't physicalize, and they don't differentiate. So here's my advice. Slow down, don't move randomly, and differentiate. But I don't think that's really helpful, because telling somebody not to do something isn't as helpful as telling them what to do or how to do it or how to avoid those traps that young actors sometimes fall into. So I'm going to break it down for you and give you some helpful advice that'll help you avoid these 3 mistakes and will hopefully help you have the best monologue possible. So mistake number 1, as I said, is rushing. Students tend to go very fast. Sometimes it might be nervousness that does that. Sometimes it might be your adrenaline is pumping, or you've rehearsed it so well that you know it so well that you just are kind of blurting it out like a really fast robot. But rushing is really detrimental to your audition, and I'm going to tell you why. The directors won't be able to understand what you're saying, and you just blend in with everybody else. You don't stand out. So, again, a lot of acting coaches, monologue coaches will tell their students, slow down. But to me, saying slow down isn't good enough, because slowing down is obvious, but it's not easy. So instead of just telling you to slow down, I'm going to actually give you some really good advice that will eliminate your need to slow down, because you won't have to think about going too fast, because you are going to give yourself a tempo that avoids all of that. So here's the secret. Ready? You are going to give yourself 3 tempos when you are doing your monologue. That's 3 different speeds that are going to help you to prepare. One speed is going to be a moderate speed. That's the way I'm speaking right now. When you are going through some basic narration or moments of the monologue that are not at a really urgent moment, you're going to give yourself a moderate tempo where you speak sort of the way that I'm speaking now. Your second tempo is going to be your quick tempo, and that's when you speed up because there's a moment of extreme urgency and you're going to take your tempo up a notch and really pull everything together and take the speed up. You're not going to want to do that for very long, but you are going to have that tempo so that you can access it when you need to, so that when there's a moment of extreme urgency, suddenly you can speed your monologue up and give yourself that little bit of differentiation. Your third tempo is going to be your slow tempo. That's what you're going to use to accentuate your really dramatic, powerful moments. Those are the moments when you know that silence has power, and that you can be a gripping and compelling actor simply by letting silence and and slowness take command of the stage. And again, with that one, you're not going to let it go on for too long. You wouldn't want to do your entire monologue like this, just like you wouldn't want to do your entire monologue like this. So you're going to give yourself 3 tempos, and then you're going to go through your script and you're going to mark out where are the areas when I should speed up, where are the areas when I should slow down, where are the areas where I should give myself a little bit more of a moderate tempo. You're going to mark that out and you're going to differentiate throughout. Now there's no right and wrong answer. It's not like I can say this line should be on tempo number 1, this line should be on tempo number 2. Everybody's going to do it differently, and that's okay. So for me, I might like to take moments of tension, building up to the tension. I might want to go a little bit slower. And then at the pinnacle of the urgency, I might want to speed up a little bit and then slow down for suspense, right? So it's up to you when you want to use your 3 tempos, but you definitely want to make sure that you give yourself those 3 tempos. So for example, if I were doing this monologue that is Matilda's monologue, I'm not going to do the whole thing in the interest of time, but I'm going to just go through it and show you how you can use 3 tempos within the monologue. So I'm going to start out with the moderate tempo, and then as the urgency builds, I'm going to slow down or speed up depending on what the moment calls for. Okay, so the moment the specially designed dress was set alight, the acrobat swung into the air. The crowd held their breath as she hurled over the sharks and spiky objects. 1 second, 2 seconds. They watched as the flames crept up the dress. 3 seconds, 4 seconds. She started to reach out her arm toward the cage. 5 seconds, 6 seconds. Suddenly, the padlocks pinged open and the huge chains fell away. So, I hope that was helpful. I'm not going to do, as I said, the entire monologue, but I hope that was helpful in showing you how you can give yourself 3 different tempos to use so that you're not always just doing everything the same. Likewise, you can also give yourself 3 different volumes, and those 3 different volumes can correspond with the tempos. So some moments might be 1 second, 2 seconds. The crowd held their breath. And then suddenly this happened! You can get louder. Or you might be here. So the 3 different volumes and the 3 different tempos will be really helpful. You can also do 3 different lengths of pauses. So this is called your 3x3. 3 different tempos, 3 different volumes, 3 different lengths of pauses. So, and again, in theater, we don't call a pause, we call it a beat. Because as in music, even if you're not saying something is happening in that moment where you stop. So a pause is like do 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 do, but a beat means something is happening. So we say something, and then we say something else, but we're still reacting within that moment where we're not speaking. That's called taking a beat. Acting is reacting. So you should all know that from drama class. Okay, so moving on. Just to reiterate, on number 1, instead of telling you slow down or don't rush, I'm telling you give yourself 3 tempos, 3 different volumes, and 3 different lengths of pauses so that you can use your 3 different speeds to differentiate your monologue and make sure that you're doing something that stands out and that you understand urgency and what needs to be done in order to communicate urgency and different types of urgency to your audience. So I hope that helps with problem number 1. Let's move on to problem number 2. Problem number 2 is lack of physicalization. A lot of students have this problem. Either they stand totally straight like a statue when they do their monologue and they don't move at all, or they move around completely randomly. And as I've told some of you in drama class over the past few weeks, random is a word that I want you to eliminate from your dramatic vocabulary. Nothing you do as an actor should be random. Everything should have purpose and intention, especially your movement. So, as an example, a lot of students do this, and I'm going to use Mr. Wormwood's monologue just to change things up a little bit. So, Mr. Wormwood is speaking, and a lot of times people might do something like this. Everyone gather round. I want my family to share of my triumph. Not you, boy. 150 old bangers on my hands, all polished up, the mileage on the back, telling the truth, and each one was You get the point. So I'm just pacing back and forth. And even if you look at the audience while you pace, which a lot of people do, they go like this. Even if you look at the audience while you pace, random movement is not only not helpful to the monologue, it's extremely distracting. And if you remember from 5th grade drama, I always used to give you that little saying that we would do, the key to perfect poise, no hula hips, which is constantly shifting your weight, no giggle lips, which is breaking character, no wandering eye disease, which is being a bobblehead doll, no wandering foot disease, which is kind of flailing your legs around randomly, and no orangutan arms, which is swinging like this and hitting people. And then the last one we always say is never, ever make your audience seasick. Blah. And so we did that in 5th grade, and it was fun and it was silly, but it's actually really, really good advice. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen a student perform their entire monologue doing this. And it is so distracting to me that I actually stop paying attention to what they're saying. And I get distracted by this because the seasick, the swaying back and forth makes me seasick. It makes me nauseous. So I hope that you can see what I'm saying. Hopefully at this point in the video, you are very distracted by my swaying back and forth and you just want me to stop, but I won't. So it's really important. When you're performing, plant your feet. If you're going to move, move with purpose and intention. And if you don't have a reason to move, don't move. If you feel your character needs to move at a certain moment, give the character a reason. Maybe they have to talk to somebody over there. As the actor in doing a monologue, you have the power to put people and objects wherever you want in the room. So if you feel that your character needs to move, for example, you can give yourself a reason. Maybe there's a person there to whom they really need to speak. So instead of just standing here for my monologue, maybe I'm going to say, I really have to tell you this super important line, but I just got an idea and realized that that's over there. So you give yourself purposeful, intentioned movement, okay? So for example, everybody gather around. Maybe I'm moving around to get everybody, to gather everybody. Everybody gather around. I want my family to share my story of triumph. Not you, boy. 155 old bangers on my hands, all polished up, but the mileage on the clock telling me the truth. Each one was knackered. Now you notice I'm not just talking about my feet when I talk about movement, I'm talking about my hands as well. A lot of people do hand movement that's extremely repetitive, so they might do this over and over. This is a very common one. 150 old bangers, all on my hands, all polished up. Da-da-da-da-da, line, 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 line. When you're moving your hands, you absolutely should move your hands. I don't like to see people with their arms straight at their sides. But when you move your hands, you need to make it different each time. You can't just do the same movements over and over, right? So, gather around, family. I want to tell you my story of triumph. So I just thought of 2 different movements within the first line that I'm going to do. I'm going to say, gather around to my family, and I'm going to tell them that I want to share my story of triumph, okay? So then I have the line to Matilda, so then maybe I take a step back. Not you, boy, and I point at Matilda, okay? So then I move on. 150 bangers on my hands, all banged up. All polished up. The mileage on the clock telling the truth that each one was knackered. How could I possibly make the mileage go back? I couldn't very well drive each one backwards, could I? When suddenly I had the most genius idea in the world, right? So do you see how I'm doing lots of different things with my hands that help to tell the story? I'm not just repeating the same things over and over. I'm differentiating. Gather around. I want to share my story of triumph. Not you, boy. I have the most genius idea in the world, right? Lots of differentiated, purposeful, intentioned movement with my hands, with my body, and where I'm walking with my feet, okay? So really, really make sure that you physicalize your monologue and that you make each physicalization different and unique. You don't want to be repetitive, okay? So Finally, the third most common mistake that students make, and I already touched on this quite a bit, talking about movement and talking about speed, but that is failure to differentiate. And the differentiation is, as I said, so important. You don't want to be repetitive. You don't want to be a Johnny one note. You want to make sure that you differentiate your tone as well as your speed and your physicality, okay? So when you're telling a story, it's not all the same note. And this tends to happen a lot anytime a monologue is angry or has like a really heightened level of emotion. A lot of times people just tend to do the whole thing on one note. So I'm going to use Miss Trunchbull's monologue for this example. So a lot of times this is what young actors do. How dare you! You are not fit to be in this school. You ought to be in prison, in the deepest, dankest, darkest prison. I shall have you wheeled out, strapped to the trolley with a muzzle over your mouth. I shall crush you. I shall pound you. I shall dissect you, madam. I shall strap you to a table and perform experiments on you. You get the point. Now, if you watch that monologue, what I just did, I was not differentiating at all. I was just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's really, really important when you're doing your monologues, once you've done something on a line, once you've shouted and pointed your finger, the director already knows that you know how to shout and point your finger. What else can you do? So if you just shout and point your finger the whole monologue, you have shown the director that the only thing you know how to do is shout and point your finger. So you have to differentiate, okay? Differentiate your movement, differentiate your speed, and differentiate your action, your embodiment of the character. The key word in embody is body. So you have to use your body to do different things to show that you're a full character, not just a Johnny one note. So if, for example, I were doing this Miss Trunchbull, I might go back to that rule of 3 that I talked about with the speed. I said 3 different speeds, 3 different lengths of pauses, and 3 different volumes, which is all very helpful. But now maybe I'm going to give myself 3 different types of anger, because this monologue is very angry, and we want Miss Trunchbull to be very menacing in this monologue. So when you give yourself, when you're working on a monologue, it's very important to give yourself action words instead of emotional words. I always tell kids, don't worry about playing the emotion, which I know sounds weird for an acting teacher, but if you play the action, the emotion will come to you naturally. So instead of saying, I want you to be angry, I would say, I want you to threaten. I want you to intimidate. I want you to bully. Those words are going to help you to pull the emotion in better. And again, give yourself different types so that you're not just shouting the whole thing on one note. So for example, I might do this like, how dare you? You are not fit to be in this school. You ought to be in prison, in the deepest, dankest, darkest prison. I shall have you wheeled out, strapped to a trolley with a muzzle over your mouth. I shall crush you. I shall pound you. I shall dissect you, madam. I shall strap you to a table and perform experiments on you. All of these disgusting little slugs shall suffer the most appalling indignities because of you. Yes, you! I shall feed you to the termites! You get the point? I'm not going to do the whole monologue. But the point is, if you looked at the way I did that, I differentiated. Sometimes it's a lot scarier to take your voice down here. This can be a lot more menacing than just yelling at somebody all the time! So it's really, really helpful to differentiate and to use lots of different volumes. And if you're going to shout, make your shouting purposeful, intentioned, and make sure that that purposeful intention shouting isn't for too long, okay? So, to review, don't rush, don't move randomly, and don't fail to differentiate. All of this stuff comes back to the same solution. Differentiate, differentiate, differentiate. When you are doing your monologue, it is so, so important to differentiate. Use lots of different tempos, use lots of different volumes, use lots of different types of pauses, not pauses, beats. Give yourself purposeful, intentioned movement, and make sure that you choose to drive your monologue with action verbs that differentiate on every line. I hope that this advice is very, very helpful. The next step is to take all of this advice that I just gave you for a monologue and put that into a song. I actually hold a workshop called The Story of the Song, which goes over the biggest mistake that young actors do at an audition with a song. And a lot of times people just rest on their laurels with knowing they're confident as a singer. So they think that they can just stand there and sing beautifully and forget to tell the story. So all of the things that I just told you to do in the monologue, you also have to do in the song. So you don't want to take your song and just go, let's see, where's the song? I'm going to find it, and sorry. The song. My mommy says I'm a miracle. So you don't want to just stand there and forgive me, I'm not a wonderful singer, but I'm going to do this just for the purposes of the audition. My mommy says I'm a miracle. One look at my face and it's plain to see. Ever since the day Doc chopped the umbilical cord, it's been clear there's no peer for a miracle like me. No, that is no good. Even if you sang that with the most beautiful voice in the entire world, I wouldn't be interested, because I want somebody who can tell the story. What is the song saying? The lyrics are important. So this is about a spoiled little child whose parents think she's just perfect. So let's show that. My mommy says I'm a miracle. One look at my face and it's plain to see. Ever since the day Doc chopped the umbilical cord, it's been clear there's no peer for a miracle like me. Right? Purposeful, intentioned movement. And again, I'm not going to take all the time to break it down like I did with the monologues, because it's the same advice. Every single thing that you did to your monologue, do to your song. And in fact, when you do your song, prepare it as a monologue. That's going to be really, really helpful to you. Do it as a monologue first without singing. So, my mommy says I'm a miracle. One look at my face and it's plain to see. Ever since the day Doc chopped the umbilical cord, it's been clear there is no peer for a miracle like me, right? So perform it as a monologue and then add the singing. But when you add the singing, don't forget the acting. And you'll do the same thing with revolting children. I don't want to see anybody just standing going, we are revolting children living in revolting times. I want to see you acting. We are revolting children living in revolting times. We sing revolting songs using revolting rhymes, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So, purpose, intention, differentiation. Good luck on your auditions.